If you are like me, you have found yourself immeasurably blessed by at least one, if not more, of the many variations of the GMT800 platform. You've got a 4.8 liter or a 5.3 liter, and you know it's something special. You're probably going to put a turbo on it soon, but for now you've got like an intake and a cool muffler on it. Mine's got little shorty headers on it with the stock cats, but I've got a spin tech on it, so it sounds pretty good. And I've got one of them big 4-inch straight intakes on it with a cone filter, and I want a little more juice out of it. So we all know that HP tuners, you can get in there and make some real power, but I'm going to show you what you can do just with a stock plus truck like this. I'm just going to show you the main things where you're going to get a lot of gains here, and we can get bogged down in it, but I'm just going to show you how to make noticeable gains. Leave your idle alone for now. There's little tricks you can do to make it sound cooler. We're not talking about that. If you've got an intake, you're going to want to add a little bit of airflow here. This will only come into play when you're up in the higher RPMs on the stock tune. So grab everything from like 4,000 up and you just add 5%, maybe 8%, but we're going to be adding fuel other places here too. A couple of tricks I'm going to show you. So no more than 5% there. That usually puts it pretty much spot on for those like eBay intakes or the other, even the aftermarket ones that are more expensive. It's about the same. Leave your VE table alone if you haven't touched your cam. Leave your dynamic switching point alone. This is something that you might mess with when you get more into tuning or when you cam it or whatever, but just leave it alone. If it's an O2 or older, you might have EGR. You come into this exhaust tab and that's where you can disable that. You didn't hear that from me. Okay, so here's one of my biggest tricks. These vehicles that don't have flex fuel sensors, they were built before 07, and so their stoic target is a little bit lean for our 10% ethanol fuel nowadays. So I would, I actually haven't even done it on this truck yet, but I need to subtract 0.5, my bad. We'll do that twice. So put it about to 14.2, and that's the actual stoic for pump gas nowadays, unless you're getting ethanol free, but why would you if you could get premium? That will alone give you a lot more overhead for spark knock. The other big thing you're gonna do is come in here and enable your power enrichment. Disable all delays here, set it all to 0. Some of them will have more. Come into your cold throttle, make it look like this. Let me see if I've got a stock one here to compare it to. So the stock one doesn't enable till over 90% throttle. I would take it from about 3,200, 36 is where I've got it. Put it about 65 for something that you daily drive. You can make it more aggressive if you want, but just leave this alone down here. It'll still go into power enrichment if you go wide open throttle from down here. But you don't want it going in when you don't intend to, and that'll just keep it out of that and save your fuel mileage. And then come into the EQ ratio, and this will be all over the place on the stock ones. In my experience, if you just make it about 20% across the board and then interpolate it down about 15% down here, so 1.15 up to 1.2, that usually has you spot on, at least real close. It'll be targeting what you want, about 12.5 to 12.8 to 1 air fuel. And then you can lower these numbers too. This will be much higher. This is actually a little low for a daily. I'd put that about 45 and then turn this down about 50%, 40%, 30%, whatever you think. And that way none of that will keep it out of power enrichment. Nothing else here you ought to worry about right now. If you've got no cats, that's where you disable them. Spark table. To quickly do a spark table, I usually just grab everything and add a couple degrees. You're gonna need to do a lot of work down here. I would just grab the whole thing, set it to 25-ish, and then interpolate up and interpolate down, and then make it so if you've got a 5.3, it'll be getting down about 5.6, dipping down to the 0.6 here. Make it about 25 to 26 degrees, and you can add and subtract from there as needed, but That's usually safe for any of them to start with. I'm assuming that you're going to put premium in it to do your tuning, so just mine I can run on regular at about 26, 27 degrees, and I don't get any spark knock, so that's good. This is kind of silly. This will give you pops and bangs. It will trash your cats, so don't do it if you've got cats. I do have cats, but I plan on putting a turbo on it soon, so I'm just having fun with it. It sounds awesome. Stock cam, you can put it about 12 degrees and that makes it sound perfect, not too stupid. It sounds intentional, and then kind of make it blend down here into your idle so that it doesn't go crazy. Should look about like that. Then you're gonna take that whole table, I know this is controversial, just take your whole table, paste it over to your low octane table, grab the whole thing above like, I don't know, 2400 and pull 3 degrees out. And that'll give you a little bit of safety if you get into some spark knock. But people have problems with it. I have never seen it with my own eyes. I've never even seen a video about anyone having an issue with doing that. I do know that this is way more aggressive than the table that was there. It just doesn't seem to matter much. It's just nice to have that there. You're gonna wanna come into all of these modifiers and tone them back at least. IAT, I have it just pulling like 2 degrees if it gets too hot. They all kind of look different. The numbers will vary wildly. This one, let's see what the stock one is. So this stock one I had in here, that's what it looked like. It doesn't start pulling timing till up here. But if it gets real hot, it'll pull a bunch. And then it's got you adding a bunch of timing if it's cold. And just to not mess with that, I like to tone that way back. Cut it in half, cut it down, I don't know, 70%. And it'll look something like this. I've got it adding 2 degrees all the way up to here. Once it's up to temp, it's running less timing, and then I start pulling timing out a little earlier than the stock tune once it gets over 200. That's how I manage my timing safely rather than relying on all the way they had it there. All this stuff you can modify as needed. Leave everything else alone. Torque management, go into abuse mode, disable it on the engine only, do not disable it on transmission. Set this to a high number and set this to 0. And let's see. So the stock table looks something like this. Don't mess with these numbers. It doesn't do anything. I've tried it a lot. It just makes no difference. I usually bump this number up to about 600, 640 is the limit. I still don't think it does much, but just to make sure that the torque limit is higher, I do that. Then I'll take that table there, the max torque versus RPM, and bump it up 200 everywhere so that that's not going to limit us with the throttle. And then your ETC limits here. You can grab this whole table and set it to 100 and it will never interfere. It'll let you go wide open in any situation. I have found that in a stock truck, it makes low speed stuff really touchy, and I don't like that. So I left it stock down to like 80% throttle here, up under 2000 RPM, just left that stock. I pasted the stock stuff up here and then added a bunch to it, but it kind of gives it more of a, it just works in my truck. Sometimes it doesn't make much of a difference, but everything down here, just make sure that it's just all 100 and you will notice a big difference in the power delivery. Okay, next big thing you're gonna wanna focus on is your shift scheduling. Why is that looking funny? Go into your normal shift table. You're gonna wanna make it look something like this. These numbers are gonna need to be higher so that you can raise your shift points, and then interpolate it down a little bit, and grab everything down to about 30% throttle and just bump it up a few miles an hour. And that just gives it, even on a stock truck, just better feel. You don't have to do much here. Now, the best thing you can do is get an app. It's on some sketchy forum or something on a Google Drive. It's called Blue Cat. Works awesome. I can't get it to work with this version of Windows that I have. It's some basic version that even the admin mode doesn't let me run it on this one, but I've used it before. You plug in your info and it gives you perfect numbers for this. Do that if you can. Then you're gonna wanna take note of this column here, the top column, and copy it over to the normal table here. Just leave your performance table alone for now, that's your tow haul. Make sure those numbers match. then go into your RPM and you can bump it up a little bit. I don't have mine up much, maybe 200 RPM. And then I put a number here so that it'll actually shift into fourth, because the stock tune won't let it shift into fourth at wide open throttle. But it helps if you get up there in the 120, 130 area. But the biggest, you can mess with your pressures and shift timing a bunch. I'm not going to go into that here. You can get performance out of it that way, but the biggest thing you're going to get is from the torque converter lockup tables. The normal table is going to look like this. It will never apply in second gear, and it waits till you're at freeway speeds to engage in third. And at wide open throttle, it won't even lock up in fourth at all. Through trial and error, I towed an enclosed trailer with a car in it about 400 miles down to Las Vegas, and I did trial and error on this, and I figured out the best table to set up for towing for a 4L60, and I've found that even if you put it on a daily, it shifts better and does better at high speed. And the biggest part of this is you're not going to make heat. So let it lock up in second, up over 55 miles an hour, so only when you're on the aggressive throttle. With the tune modifications you've made, it will make enough power to handle this. But basically, with my little 4.8, I can go wide open throttle up a hill on I-15 and maintain 75, 80 miles an hour. And it's at 5,000 RPM, and my torque converter's locked up, and my transmission is not making heat. I did not see more than 180 degrees after I made this adjustment. And then you can see I've lowered these numbers a little bit on the third gear, and then in fourth, I allow it to lock up earlier, and at wide open throttle up over 95. So it just seems to tow better and drive better like this. And then I do let it unlock once you release up here. Otherwise you get some like bucking and weird stuff happening. But if it looks like that, you're gonna save your 4L60 a bunch of trouble and a bunch of heat. It is harder on the hard components, so keep note of that. I can rebuild 4L60s, so I don't really care. And I have yet to break a 4L60, and I've had a bunch. Again, do not disable abuse mode on the transmission. It's just not what you want. You can tone down your torque reductions or whatever. I think I toned mine down. Let's see. Yeah, so they have it go all the way, 100%, and I just have it cut half. And then you can also come in here and tone these tables down. These will be high. Looks like my 6-liter doesn't even have this table, but this was up at like 55% or something. And it makes it just shift so slow because it pulls a ton of power before and after the shift. This will leave some safety in it. It'll still pull some power as it shifts, but it does it so quick because it's such a small amount that it's a noticeable difference. If you do those things, it feels like you've got a pro tune on it.